Hello, everyone, and thank you for coming on to Let's Talk About It, Steph. I am your host, Steph, and we are going to do a deep dive today. Of course, you know I have my co-host tonight is Dale, and then we have a special guest on here, and I will let Dale introduce him. But I want you to make sure you go grab your tea because, of course, we got a lot of tea to talk about tonight, and we're just going to sit back and enjoy ourselves tonight. And also, we're going to send our condolences to the folks once again over in Minneapolis. They had a tragedy that wound up happening at one of the Catholic schools out there. So we definitely want to send our thoughts and our prayers once again out there to them. And hopefully that we can some kind of way wind up making some type of gun change laws out here in the United States because it's starting to get bad. My thought is our children shouldn't have to go to school and our teachers shouldn't have to go to school wondering is today the day that we got to run and hide. So, with that being said, I am going to bring on Dale on here, and then we're going to bring on our special guest, Nick. I call him Nick, but his name is Fredrick Nick. Hi, Dale.
Oops, I was on mute. Hey, how you doing? Good to be here.
How are you doing today?
Doing all right. Doing all right. I am wearing my George Mason University shirt because I don't know if it didn't really make all that many headlines, but recently, I guess the Trump administration wanted George Mason University to apologize for its DEI programs, and they made this request at our GMU's first Black president. Um, George Mason University's visitors on Monday. Hold on. I did have the article up. Well, the headline is GMU president refuses to apologize for diversity ethics. His lawyer calls the Department's of Education's claim absurd. So the current Department of Education, led by Trump, demanded that GMU apologize for DEI. And my university that I went to said no. We are a very diverse campus, and we always have been. So I'm very proud to see that my home university is standing up. So that's pretty awesome. One of the few, you always got to collect those few things in good news, right? With everything that's going on. So that's how I get to sleep at night.
That's amazing. I'm like, yeah, you're gonna have to sport that shirt so everybody can see it.
Yep. George Mason University.
All right.
There's sometimes people look at it and they say like the Masons, like the Freemasons. Some people have those conspiracy theories and whatnot.
I hear you. I hear you. Well, y'all get together. Somebody is at my door. Who is at my door? Oh my gosh. You know who it is? It's Frederick.
Oh
Hi,
man,
Nick. How you doing?
I'm great. Thank you for having me. I love the intro, the doorbell. I was like, "Who's ringing my doorbell?"
We're always coming up with something.
I like it. I
We're
like it.
always coming up with something. How are you doing on this Wednesday?
I'm great. I was traveling yesterday, and you spoke about Minneapolis. I was in Minneapolis yesterday at the DNC meetings. So it's surreal and crazy that I leave there last night, and then this morning, right, a couple hours after I get back, because I got back about midnight, um, tragedy happens, right, again, right? Sad. Your heart goes out to the families and loved ones and everyone there in the community.
It does. It does. It's really sad. And you are a vice principal, correct?
I am of a high school. I am a vice principal, yeah. So I
So
understand the protocols that go in with safety, right? Safety is paramount in any school. That's the first thing we do. Safety, safety, safety. Then everything else is second. Because if the students and the staff don't feel safe, education cannot happen.
okay, okay. So explain this to people who do not have children in school that are empty nesters and the children are gone. Now, do the kids have access to their phones just in case there's an emergency?
Yes, they do. The law allows it. So the law says that the phone has to be in the bag. and it has to be in their bag during the instructional day. So the instructional day is when school starts to when school ends. So in case of emergencies, the students can use their phone. I would hope that they get to safety first, then use their phone, but they do have access in case of emergency.
Okay. Thank you for clearing that up because people like myself, thank you for clearing that up. We needed that. We need to hear that, hey, at least they're say, no, they can't use it while they're in the classroom, but we know as long as they have it on them, somewhere on them, we're good. We're good. So let's get into some of these hot topics tonight. I know that we got so much going on, and I tell you, like I always say, this man can never not give us enough to talk about. We're going to always have something to talk about. But before we get into that, we definitely want to make sure that we send out our condolences to the families and prayers out to the ones that's in the hospital out there in Minneapolis. Our prayers go out to y'all, and some kind of way we have to have some laws put in place about these gun controls, how people are getting them. We need better backgrounds. And not only that, I hate to say it like this, but people who have weapons in their homes, we're gonna have to start holding people accountable about securing their weapons. I'm a gun owner myself, and when you have children at home, you need to make sure that you secure your weapons or face consequences if something wind up taking place. I know people don't like to hear that, but some kind of way we gotta find a way how to do gun control, and we also have to have some type of mental check background as well because I don't know. Maybe it'll help, maybe it won't. I don't know, but we got to do something instead of sitting back and always sending out condolences because this is another tragedy that should not have happened. And some of these people do not need to be having guns. So if y'all want to say, hey, take guns away from people that's supposed to have guns taken away from them. Those that take care of their weapons and they have them put up and they know how to use them and they explain to their kids what you can and cannot do with a gun, the safety of it, then they're fine. It's the ones that just do whatever. They don't care. They don't secure it. That's not going to happen to me. It can happen. So what's y'all
Yeah,
thoughts?
absolutely. And I mean, pushing for red flag laws is really important, and I think there are some cases that are starting to happen now in certain states. It may depend upon the laws of the state, but in circumstances, I know that there was some parents that were charged with, I forget if it was manslaughter or not, but there was enough warning signs with their child that the parents should have known better. But those are extreme circumstances where courts have been successful in charging the parents when it comes to neglect by the parents, right? But I mean, I think it should also be considered neglectful when you don't secure your firearm from your child, depending upon the certain circumstance. And I did see that the mayor came out and he had a statement, and one of the lines that really caught my ear was he said, "Thought seemingly unprovoked. He said, thoughts and prayers are not enough." And I think that kind of highlights how you almost expect some people to say that, to just say, "We send your thoughts and prayers," already,
Yeah.
like right off the bat, like not even 12 hours after the mayor is saying thoughts and prayers are not enough, unprovoked. So I think that kind of highlights just the tension in our society and just how often these things happen and seeing the past responses.
So I'll say this. So I served in the military for 23 years, right? Basic load when I was in for a soldier in combat was 210 rounds. So I'm going to go back to when we had the shooting here at the Allen Outlet Mall. That person had over 400 rounds. So here's the thing. If politicians aren't going to do anything about the guns, overtax the bullets, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right? If you're not going to do anything about the guns, because the first thing that comes out of everybody's mouth is, well, this is not the time to talk about gun control. Okay, fine. Let's talk about bullet control. I'm not going to talk about gun control. Let's change the narrative and let's see what
Mm-hmm.
you have to say about that, right? Because there's no reason why a person on the streets of any street in America should have more rounds than I did when I patrolled the streets of Baghdad. right? That's ludicrous, right? If you talk to anybody, and also here's the second part. I'm gonna date myself. When way back in the 90s or early 2000s, when that gentleman in San Francisco who had the full body armor, and the police had to break into the gun store because they were outgunned. Once again,
I
how
remember.
is the common citizen, right? And I get this, right? Outgunning the people who are supposed to protect us, right? Let's put that in our mind. That's crazy in itself too, right? I'm not
Right.
saying, I agree with you, Steph. Legal gun ownership is just like legal driver's license, right? No one should be riding, and I'm air quoting, riding dirty, right? You should have your driver's license, right? You should have your insurance. Your car should be inspected. All those good things that we expect. We shouldn't have people who shouldn't have access to weapons, shouldn't have it. But if we're not going to talk about weapons, let's talk about the bullets. Let's throw that out there. Let's throw that into people's face. So the next time someone says, well, we're not going to talk about guns, well, let's talk about the bullets. See what,
Yeah, because that's what's taking people out is the bullets.
yeah.
Yeah. Also, semi unrelated. I didn't know if I should bring this up or not, because this has more to do with domestic abuse. But I do know that of the domestic abuse cases where someone winds up getting shot, it's usually, like an ex boyfriend or something like that, and it's usually a handgun.
Mhm.
But again, with these cases, in kind of like usually with cases like this as well, again, I don't know if we really know for sure who the shooter is yet in their background, but more times than not, there are noticeable issues. Again, things that would be caught by red flag laws if we had them, you know? So, I mean, it's for protecting a lot of handgun violence and domestic abuse. And then also when it comes to this mass shootings and things like that as well. I mean, I'm not sure if we know who the shooter is yet.
No.
Um,
Yeah, we do.
Oh,
we
you
do?
do?
Yeah, he graduated from that school like 8 years ago. He's only 23 years old. They haven't said why he did it, but I have many thoughts. With that being a Catholic school, I'm wondering, was he bullied and he just snapped? I don't know, but at the end of the day, still, there's no reason for him to do what he did. There's just, you can't fix that. There's no reason why. He was outside of that Catholic church, knocked out one of the windows, and just start taking and start aiming at those kids. And I think it was some parents in there as well too. So there's about 14 people that got injured. One of the young children that was on there had got out and said that he was sitting in the bleachers and one of his friends jumped on him to cover him to protect him from getting hit, and his friend got hit in the back. So, and I totally agree with the mayor about the thoughts and prayers, because enough is enough. And Nick, you're absolutely right. I'm with you on that, because they tax the heck out of people who drink alcohol and who smoke. Then you know what, for all you people who got guns and stuff, maybe we should tax the hell out of you with that. Do what somebody like to say, torf them, double torf. Well, maybe we should double triple tax on those bullets and slow down some of these shootings, because Johnny can't afford to get a bullet unless he go to his grandparents' house. But we got to do something about it. This is getting ridiculous, and I feel like we as a community, and it doesn't matter. It's not about politics. It's about saving people's lives, and then with them passing that law to where people can actually get those silencers, we in trouble, because you can't hear if somebody has one of those. You know. So something has to be done about these stupid laws that are being put in place for the person that is causing the issue. And we need to do better by protecting the victims, because our kids are going to school and they're learning how to fight and flight. That is, I don't know.
I mean, when we were kids, and we were kids, we did tornado drills. We did, and I'm from New York City, so we did bomb drills because the Soviets were going to kill New York City, right? So we'd get under the desk and do bomb drills. Now we do lockdown, lockout, shelter in place, right? Words that didn't even exist when we were kids in school. These kids are growing up in a dynamic that these words are made up. And while I'm on words, I'm gonna say this. I agree with the mayor when he said it's the whole thoughts and prayers is kind of, yeah. In the English language, there's a couple words. So when you're a widow, and when you're a man and your wife dies, you're a what? You're a widower. When you're a woman and your husband
Mhm.
dies, you're a widow. When your kids and your parents die, you're orphaned. There's no term in the English language when a parent loses a kid. Let that soak in. There is no term. Heartbroken? I don't know. There's no real term, right? That we say that's the term we use for that because it's unnatural. And things that are unnatural, we should fix because they're unnatural, because they're never going to be natural because they're never going to be rational. And that's where I think that's where we should start. Hit them with that. What's the term for it?
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. I think it's interesting that I was born in 1985, and I remember, to me, the first mass shooting that I remember is Columbine, and I think to our country that might have kind of been the number one shocker. I'm not sure. Maybe there was another mass shooting at some sort of school or area before Columbine, but I remember since then it seemed like it was not necessarily normal per se. I don't want to call it normal. It's
Mhm.
just something that was known. And it's interesting because, I was young when Columbine happened. And I know there are people who are younger than me who probably don't even remember Columbine. And one sad thing here is that, I was talking to someone from I think it was the Denton County Young Democrats. And they were saying, the youth these days, they don't understand what normal is, or at least what normal is in the concepts of what we call normal. What is
Yeah,
so-called
2000.
normal has changed for us, but for the youths, they don't know that, and that was really eye-opening to me. So I absolutely think you're right, Nick. I think probably a word will be eventually be made. I know that they add words actually to the dictionary every other year or so. So maybe one day, unfortunately, it will become. And again, I don't want to use the word normalized, but it will be something that is known enough to the point where I don't know what the word will be, but sadly, it is becoming more and more uh, common of a problem.
Well, I don't think that, I don't think they want to add that word because that word becomes a weapon then. Because now it becomes a bumper sticker, it becomes on every poster, it becomes every commercial, and it gets used against the people who are against whatever it is, right? And then they don't want a new word to have to defend. Right. So yeah, I agree they might bring it, but they haven't brought it to now because no one wants to bring it because it'll be weaponized. And sadly,
Yeah, it's really sad. But something got to change. I know I'm gonna keep saying this. Y'all gonna hear me continue saying this to 2026 all the way to 2028. We have got to change the people that are sitting in these seats that are making these bad policies. And parents, we got to do better by knowing what's going on in our household. I know a lot of us are so busy trying to work and trying to make sure we provide for our family, but we got to pay attention to what's going on with our kids. What kids have only been in school for 2 weeks out here in Texas. We don't need any more issues. Pay attention to what's going on in your kids. And parents, those of you that know that your son or daughter is not acting right, those are the ones that you definitely need to check on. Check on them. Go be nosy, because I was always nosy going in my kids' room when they wouldn't. I know they probably listening. Yes, I did. I went into your room and checked to see what was going on. If you left a notebook, I'm reading. I'm asking teachers. I was so nosy. I got involved, and that's what we have to do. We have to be involved. And if our neighbors see something, you got to say something, because we all are living in this world together, and we all got to look out for each other. No matter what somebody else is trying to do, divide us up, we got to wind up helping each other, because at the end of the day, we all bleed red. So with that, we're going to move to another conversation. Y'all, I know this has been week 4 that I have been talking about this subject, but I can't help it because it's a hot topic. Redistricting for 2026. So, We had people that wind up leaving here in Texas and they wind up going to other places. And I want to say they did an amazing job in standing their ground. I really believe in the cause of what they did. But then you have some other individuals decided that they wanted to pass it anyway. So it did, the redistricting map was passed. But as usual, they always throwing something together, and I just feel like they're gonna eventually wind up choking on it because they didn't actually do the homework that they should have done because they was too busy trying to look in somebody else's backyard and see what they were doing and trying to hold them accountable instead of making sure they was doing right for the people. But that's just me. I'm gonna tell it like it is. I always want to say they're gonna do the right thing, but we all know they ain't gonna never do the right thing as long as they got Cheetos up in office telling them what to do because they like to be bullied. What do y'all have to say about this redistricting nightmare for 2026 and what are we going to do to make changes?
Yeah, I'm going to say this actually for almost every topic now because I have a note to myself for every topic that we bring up. I'm going to say, man, oh man, this feels like a distraction away from the Epstein files. Now, granted, it's probably also because they know this is absolutely necessary, and the way I get myself to sleep at night is I remind myself that the first time Donald Trump had a trifecta, there was a blue wave during his midterm, right? The political pendulum always swings in the opposite direction during a midterm. I'm sorry, during a midterm, the political pendulum always swings in the opposite direction of the party of the president. That's just statistically always been seen. And so they know that's coming again. And they know the Republicans know that they have been having terrible town halls. I mean, just go on to YouTube and look up some of the town halls that these Republican congressmen have had. It's been really rough, and they see that. They see that. So they're doing what they can. I mean, I'm not going to hold my breath with thinking like, oh, maybe they screwed up. I'm sure they're probably researching it right now. From what I understand, I believe it passed both the state house and the state senate. The governor has not signed it yet, though. Correct? Um, until I'm sure they're still looking into it. And if they feel like there is an error, they'll probably tap the governor and say, "Hey, don't sign this one. Just call another special session." But I'm not sure. I just know that they are in control. Um, Though, well, I don't know. If they do, then they might run out of time, but it's hard to speculate with that. I know that it does tend to take away the representation, particularly of prominent Black and Brown communities, which I think is kind of interesting considering that Texas. I mean, this is a statistic that I was almost surprised to hear about the other year, is that Texas has more Black people than any other state in the country. So that's interesting to learn, and the fact that the Latino population seemed to trend a little bit more in Trump's favor in this past election. But with ICE and all that stuff that's happening nowadays, I wonder if they fear that there's going to be a backlash from that voting bloc. Granted, I'm speculating a lot, but I'll pass it over to you, Nick. Your thoughts on redistricting?
I would say this. So Justice Sonia Murillo, I always mess up her name, sorry, said, "How is gerrymandering good for democracy?" I don't care who's doing it. I don't care if it's the left, the right. If you poll most Americans, they don't like it. Period. Why? The people should decide who represents them. It shouldn't be the other way around. Gerrymandering is bad, 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 bad. And this tit for tat is not good for democracy. So we did it. So now California is going to do it. And then another state's going to do it, right? And another state's going to do it. And then where does it go? Then here's a scenario, doomsday scenario. Now we have red, hard red, hard blue states, right? No chance of flipping them because you've done this. Now you are forced to live somewhere where you may not want to live or be economically sound for you because of the politics that happen in that state. It may not identify with your lifestyle. It may not identify with how you want to go about your life, your kids, or the way you earn your money. So you may be forced to live somewhere that you don't want to because of the politics. Tell me how that's good for democracy. And I'm gonna go something else you said, Dale. You said You said, yeah, there's more black people in this state than any other state. Yeah, there are in the state of Texas. One small problem that everyone neglects, and that there's a but in there. But we're only 13% of the population in this state. So we cannot, and that's why it's easy for them to gerrymander it, because we're 13% of the population. Cross the border into Louisiana, 30% of the population. A little harder to kind of mess that up because there's a lot more
Right.
people. Go one more Mississippi, 33%. Go one more Alabama, you're at about 31%. Go all the way up the East Coast, up Georgia, North Carolina, 30s, 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 all the way up to Virginia. A little difficult for them to gerrymander because when they do it, it's very deliberate because it's like, oh yeah, you are clearly doing this for racial reasons. Here in Texas, it's not as easy. It's easier for them to do, excuse me, because we're 13%, smaller number. Now, if you want the test case would be Hispanics because they're 40% of the population. So when you do it to Hispanics, it's like, oh, yeah, dude, it's a little obvious what you did here. Um, so it's bad for democracy, right? And it's tit for tat's not good for democracy. I'm going to say democracy because I'm going to keep saying democracy, 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 because it's bad. It's not good policy. It's really not good policy. And we're going to keep doing it. And who suffers? Us, the people. But I agree with you also, Dale, when you said it's a distraction. I don't know if it's a distraction for the Epstein files or whatever. But here's the thing: everything that the current administration has done, what they say is not the thing you should be scared of. It's what they don't say is what you should be
Exactly.
scared of, because that's the real agenda. The red meat they throw out there, the shiny penny, nah. I don't fall for that. I read between the lines. I listen with my third ear, like Joe Madison said, right? You listen with your third ear because that third ear is where you're gonna learn the truth. Gerrymandering is just because they know the end game of gerrymandering. You're gonna do it. It keeps the headlines. It distracts away from whatever they don't want you really talking about. And it may be the Epstein files. It may be. I don't know. I don't know. But there's something they don't want you talking about. So
Oh
when we
yeah, it's a whole lot what they don't want you to talk about. Like, what's her name? Chrissy No wants to paint the fence black for some reason. For them not to. I can't make this stuff up. And they haven't discussed how they're going to go ahead and fund um, Caraville down there. They haven't talked about that by helping those folks out there. They haven't talked about the mass shooting that happened in Uvalde. They haven't talked about that stuff. So there's all kind of here in Texas. There's all kind of distractions that they're doing here. And as far as with the United States, he's just a distract. He just lets anything come out. Whatever comes out of his mouth is brown. So it's like he's gonna say something just to deter you from what everybody wants, which is the Epstein file. I could care less because we all know we're not dumb. We all know he's on the list, and we all know that we got several politicians and people that are CEOs that have probably went over there. We're not dumb. All I want you to do is run this country the right way. Make sure that you put some people in place that are actually knowing what they're doing, because every last one of the people that you have in place right now are a bunch of dumbasses, and we need to change them out. They need to go. Matter of fact, he needs to go, and JD needs to go as well. We need people that actually care about this country and make sure that we get democracy back in order and make sure that we're safe. Because I know for a fact that there are a lot of people that don't feel safe in their homes, especially immigrants. They do not feel safe in their home. They're afraid to go to stores because they feel like somebody in all black is going to snatch them up and take them somewhere that their family's not going to be able to know where they're at. Just like right now here in Arlington, they having a big old convention. I'm gonna call it a convention job fair to get ICE workers. He wants 1,000 people to sign up for ICE, and a lot of our males are signing up for this because they need a job. And my question to you: how would you feel If you had to go snatch up a relative of yours or your neighbor, and you have to turn your weapon on them because they're not moving, how do you feel? Is it because of the money you're not going to feel anything because you're getting a paycheck, a $50,000 bonus? How are you going to look at your family member once you've done that?
I think your fatal flaw with this, Stephanie, is you're asking people to lead with their hearts and not their heads. And when people are desperate, and we've this current climate of government and politics in America that we have has created a climate where people are desperate.
Mhm.
So if you're going to offer them a job that makes more than teachers, right? Because ICE agents make more than teachers, right? And you don't need any education, high school diploma, right?
18 years.
Right. So if you're looking at a young 18-year-old male who goes, man, I don't have the qualifications to be a CEO. I don't want to work at McDonald's. I don't want to work like fast food. I don't want to do menial work making minimum wage. And you're going to offer me this job to make boatloads of money that I probably would have never made anywhere else. I'm going to jump at it. Necessity. So we're asking people to lead with their moral consciousness, and that's not the world we live in anymore. Unfortunately, we don't live in this moral world anymore. We don't live in this ethical world anymore. We live in this world of the haves and have-nots. And if you
Mhm.
ask most people, they don't want to be a have-not. They want to be a have. And if you're going to give them a piece of the American pie and make them a have, they're going to jump at it. We have to set the table to where people don't want those jobs, but we have to give them something that's equivalent or better that they will jump at or come sit at that table and eat at. Until that happens, they're going to keep going over there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree with you, Nick. 'Cause right now, I have two people that I know that are currently looking for jobs, and they're black females that are looking for jobs. They cannot find a job because for some reason, some of these companies believe in DI, which black people are the fifth on the line when it comes to DI. We're the last of the last. DI doesn't really matter to us in a sense because we're always the last and you have to overly triply prove yourself that you're capable of doing the job anyway. So I'm like, you hurting us because of that. I could say a lot on that part, but I'm like, you're absolutely right. We do have to have more jobs in place for people to have more choices. But at the end of the day, we got to change these bills. And I'm going to continue on saying we have to change the boosters in the seats because they are destroying Texas and they're destroying America as it is. And the only way that you can make those changes is y'all, we got to go vote. We in Texas, we have a lot of Democrats that can actually vote. They don't have no issues. They can actually vote, but they chose to sit it out. We need everybody that's a Democrat. Hell, I don't care if you're independent. Everybody needs to go vote because at the end of the day, if we don't vote, y'all, this might be our last time.
I'm gonna tell you, I sat in Minneapolis yesterday and listened to DNC Chair Ken Martin speak, and he said the Democrats are going to run on three things. He said one of them was accessible to healthcare, right? It's going to be a big one. Healthcare, right? 300 hospitals are closing. Accessibility to healthcare was one. Affordability was another one. Be able to go and buy your groceries and, as he said, take your vacation, put two nickels together and take your vacation. Affordability. And the last one, and I'm going to paraphrase it, was the system is broken. And he used some four-letter words in his speech. And he said, we couldn't even pass the John R. Lewis Voting Rights Act.
Mhm.
Said, so how can people take Democrats seriously if we can't all agree on voting rights? Wow. Wow.
That's a statement, isn't it?
How the simplest thing of voting rights, right? The right for everyone to do what we call our civic duty as Democrats, we couldn't agree on. So it didn't pass. We screwed that up as Dems, right? Didn't pass. So how are we supposed to expect independents, infrequent voters, when we knock on their doors and go, come vote with us, and they go look at us and go,
Why?
really? You guys couldn't do the simple thing and you want me to come and join you? Get out of my face. Close the door. And you know what? I'm not mad at them. We deserve that. We couldn't do the simple thing. Voting rights. I don't care which part of the party, like he said. Cameron said, I'm talking for Cameron. If you're from the far left of the party, the middle, the far up, down, the middle side, that's the one thing we should agree on: voting rights. We couldn't get that right.
Yeah, that's pretty rough. It's I'm trying to figure out how to respond to that one, and I can think of other examples in the past where Democrats have failed. For example, like we did have the opportunity, I believe, when the Democrats had a trifecta to increase the minimum wage, use a filibuster if need be, and we didn't seem to do that. And when you ask why, I would say, well, we need to look at those key individuals within the Democratic Party who are not on board with our um, party's policies, right? And I think that kind of, I'm not quite sure exactly how to navigate this specifically. Maybe y'all can recall or tell me if I'm on the right track here. But I know the Republicans, they have a way of using what I think is called a whip sometime to door their own candidates. They have their RNC conventions at the state level. They have their RNC conventions at the county level. And they can put proclamations and even try to censure their own candidates, right? And they, on rare occasion, they've attempted to do so. For example, State House Republican Representative Dade Phelan was the Speaker of the House of Representatives at the state level in Texas, and his own party tried to censure him, right? And you don't really see Democrats do that. Like we don't necessarily always eat our own, at least when it comes to that level. And when we see certain Democrats not voting in favor towards what the general party wants, I feel like it is necessary to go that far, albeit uncomfortable. You know, it's necessary to say like, all right, which of our representatives were not on board with filibustering to increase the minimum wage, right? I think that's kind of where my brain goes sometimes when it comes to the disagreements within our party, because it is very clear that obviously as a party we want voting rights. We wanted that bill to pass you were talking about, Nick. I believe that the party absolutely should want to have minimum wage increased. So when it comes to our party's failures to that, I think we need to look at those representatives who caused our party's failure in that.
I agree. I agree. Like, yeah, if you can't do the simple things, you can't do the complicated things, right? And people aren't going to take you seriously. And not you can talk as intelligently as you want, use all the $20 words you want, but if people don't take you seriously, they're not gonna follow you. Flat out. Let's be simple with it. And
Break it
sometimes
down.
sometimes you have to look inward before you do anything outward. And I think
Yeah.
that's what we don't do as sometimes. And I think we need to. And I like Chair Ken Martin. He was blunt. He was blunt, right? And he was real with it. And it was like, wow, like, okay, a guy that gets it. He understands, right? A guy that understands the working person, right? So I don't know. But we can figure this out. And I think we can. And I think redistricting is not gonna ever stop. It's not gonna stop because it's something we like to do. And both parties do it.
Mhm. Right. Right now, it's like tit for tat. You did this, so I'm gonna do this. So, okay, I don't like that you did this, so I'm gonna sue you. It's okay for me to do it, but it's not okay for you to do it. To me, it's a bunch of overly grown kids that are acting out, and that crap needs to stop because I'm so over it. I'm so over it. I'm like, 2026 cannot come quick enough for me, and 2028 definitely cannot come quick enough for me because we got to have a change because I'm so tired of the diarrhea that's coming out of these people's mouth. They're constantly lying and they are using the media to spread more lies as well. And I'm like, that's another subject that we're going to definitely wind up having to dive into as well. Are the media being paid what to feed to people? You know, they're diverting what is really happening. And the craziest thing is those folks that got podcasts like what we have here, we're the ones that's really telling people what's going on, because the news, the real news, they're not telling people. They're only being fed, okay, tell them that the sky is blue and it's storming outside. That's the kind of news that they're getting. So we're unprepared what's going on, and something got to change.
Yeah,
Uh,
I will
go
Change.
say.
ahead, Neil.
Sorry. I'll just say two brief things there. So when it comes to the redistricting and how unfair it is, I will also say it's a little bit lopsided right now because it's mostly blue states that will say, all right, we'll have an independent commission that handles redistricting. Whereas in Texas, it's the wild, wild west, right? So that's why I was a little afraid for a second there, because California, like, they have to have an independent redistricting
Yeah.
committee in order to handle their redistricting. They don't have as much as control as the Republicans do in with redistricting in Texas. But I would think, I mean, I would press our representatives to at least push out a law that basically limits the frequency of redistricting and say that it can only be done after the census. I mean, I feel like that should be a law already.
So what I'm hearing, Dale, you're saying that the states that have the independent commissions do this thing called democracy because they are allowing the people to decide. Not
Yep.
so there's this, I'm a historian. So this guy named James Madison, right? This guy, right? He writes this thing called the Federalist Papers. And in the Federalist Papers, he has one of the papers. It says, and I'm paraphrasing, it says the majority shall never be ruled the majority shall never rule the minority. It's unnatural. What does that mean? Who is the majority? We're the majority. The minority are the lawmakers.
Mm-hmm.
What he's saying is we don't have the right to tell them what to do. They have the right to tell us what to do.
Yeah, I absolutely agree, and I unfortunately know the counter argument to that because have quite a few Republican family members, and what they would say to you if they were here is they would say that we don't live in a democracy; we live in a representational republic. Now, I always find that to be a very interesting argument because what I rebuttal with that is if I say, all right, well, then if your representative represents you, then let's look at Beau French. Beau
Mhm.
French, he is the GOP chair for Tarrant County. And he posted a tweet the other day asking who is more threatening to Americans. It was a poll. And the first option was Muslims, and the second option was Jews. And it was flagrantly, yeah, anti-Semitic and Islamophobic, right? And I'm like, this guy's elected. So if you say that we live in if we don't live in a democracy, but we live in a representative republic, then what about that? But I think my family members who use that argument saying, quote, we don't live in a democracy, we live in a representative republic, I think they genuinely feel that it's better to have those in power, I guess, stay in power. And I think it's because in their heads they think, oh, well, the ones in power are Republicans. So like they just have a bias there. I don't think they really think all the way through it when they make that statement.
Well, I
But
think I think what it is, people don't think. People. How many people? And I'll throw this both to you. How many people during election time text you or email you or call you and go, "Who should I vote for?" They
No
literally
one.
call you and go, "Who should I vote for?" Because they don't want to think. They don't want to be a part of the process, but they know they have a civic duty to do to make themselves feel good. Oh, I voted. I got my sticker. Look, I got my sticker. And they posted on all social media that they got their sticker and they're proud. They got their sticker. They don't know who the heck they voted for. They just clicking
No.
buttons. They don't know. They don't know what they're doing. So they call you because they know you're involved. They know Dale's involved. They know you're involved. They call me and they text us, and then we go vote for this person, because you know who's texting. You go vote for this person, and you go, oh God, they don't know. They just gonna click buttons. They're button clickers. They're not voters. They're button clickers. They're clicking buttons. Because a voter is an informed person. A voter is an informed person. Let me say that again. A voter is an informed person. A button click is a person that goes and gets the sticker.
Yes, you know what? I'm sorry for laughing, but you know what? It's the absolute truth. It is. Dale, you and I both ran last year, and I know me, I was basically telling people, if you see Stephanie Draper, you better vote for me. Do your research on the rest of them, but y'all know who I am. You know how I am. I'm 10 toes down for the people, but that's just me. I'm always gonna fight for the people. But then you have the button clickers and the okay. I got the shade inside the line. That's just oh, I'm push up Dale. You know what? I'm gonna put myself in timeout.
He pushed the wrong button. Yeah.
Yeah,
I,
I did.
I will say, like, that's one of the hard things about, well, one of the more, I guess, interesting things about running for office is, I would say, walking into a general election, you sometimes just assume to yourself, and it's not always true, but you sometimes just get this sinking feeling that people are going to vote based upon whether there's an R or a D next to your name, right, in the general election. But I will say my glass half full mentality is that I tell you, if you go into Van and you see that someone is voting in a runoff election, I mean those are your informed voters. Now, granted, I will say, of course, that's a very, very, very low turnout. I mean, extremely low turnout. But
Very low.
those are the people who vote in runoff elections after the primary. Those people, like, make sure you call them up. Those are your informed voters, albeit not enough of them. But yeah.
I
But
mean,
have you noticed that when we have the runoff, that nobody's really talking about the runoff? Everybody they stop at general election, and that's it. And you sitting up here like, well, who's running in the runoff? They don't know because nobody's really talking about it. So we're gonna have to do a better job in making sure people are staying informed.
Well, you'd be surprised at how many people don't even know that runoffs exist. But yeah,
yeah,
I mean, one thing I try to do to combat that in my runoff is I had my yard signs have a date on it. It would show like the date, like runoff, and then it would say the specific date. Granted, I had to like edit all the signs after the runoff election to update the date, but worth it.
Dale, I got my sticker already. Why I got to go back and get? I don't want another sticker. I got my sticker. I
Don't
don't
you
need
want to feel
another
even
one.
more patriotic?
I don't need two stickers. I got one.
Be like somebody I know got stickers all over their door in their car. I voted. I voted. Everybody knows he voted.
I already put it on social media. Everybody gave me my likes. I'm good. I don't need to go out and do no more likes. I moved on to the next topic.
Yeah. Okay. Sore losers over there. Oh yeah, but we definitely got to do a better job. Now, one thing I can say that I liked, and this happened last year. I wound up going to an event where they had the whole election thing in there, had all of the equipment there, and they were teaching people how to actually use the voting machines and how to fill out the paperwork, and all you have to do is just sign. So a lot of folks that didn't know how to vote, maybe this was their first time ever voting, they were teaching them how to go vote, and then they were also had a example ballot sheet for them so they could see who they're voting for. And a lot of people don't know until they get to the polling sites who's on the ballots because they don't know. And Lord, y'all, we got to go vote in November anyway because they have a lot of constitutional things that's going to be on the ballots this year too. So we still got to go make sure that we go and vote. So we got to do better in teaching. We got to do better in teaching.
Well, voting is a three-step process. Voter registration, everyone does it because it's easy. It's simple.
Mhm.
Give them a green form, fill it out, turn it in, or give them a white form, tell them put it in the mailbox. Step two is voter education. That's the harder part. Literally, it is very hard to do. And then because it's time consuming and it's a 365 thing. And then the last part is voter turnout. If you do number two well, number three is easy. If you
Mhm.
do number two bad, number three is going to look abysmal. You can tell because elections are high school all over again. It's a popularity contest. It's like voting for the prom king and prom queen. Do I like you? Yep. He has a strong chin. She's got good hair. She's got a good smile. I'm going to vote for her. She could be dumb as a doornail, but I'm going to vote for you because you look good. You don't look weird. You don't look like one of them. You ain't got a funny name. You got a good American name. It's as simple as that sometimes.
Nick, I have a good American name.
Interesting story about the name. I found this to be a little bit heartbreaking, but kind of interesting. I'm forgetting the guy's name now, but there was a guy who was running for a railroad commissioner in this last election cycle, and he was having a primary. But he was having a primary against a woman who moved here and apparently was a Republican. And she called herself a Republican of like Maine or a Republican of New England, but a Democrat of Texas. And of course, his name was Bill. I'm forgetting Bill's last name, who was running for railroad commissioner. But he dramatically lost hardcore in the primary. But what's interesting is the last name of the woman in the primary against him, the name looked like, the spelling looked like Colbert. So you can tell if you just looked at the ballot, first of all, she's a woman. Her last name is Colbert, which sounds like Stephen Colbert, right? The late night comedian. And then versus Bill, who's a dude. And yeah, it was just interesting how to see. Actually, I don't think he lost by that large of a margin, but still, it was interesting to see that. I sometimes kind of get the vibe or feeling that it was the name, maybe,
Mhm. Yeah.
that had some sort of influence there. I don't know if the gender had any influence or not, but if you have a last name like Colbert, then another funny story I'll pin off from that. I can't remember if that was here in Texas or not. There was another guy who changed his name. He literally changed his legal name to anybody else. I don't know if you remember that story, but he wanted to change his name to anybody else so he can run for office. Like, I don't know if it was a joke or not, but that was hilarious.
Mhm.
Oh my gosh. Well, you know what? If it was names or anything like that, my name was in a show, in a series, and they could have voted for me if they watched that series. I forgot the name of it, but everybody seems to be watching it. But I don't know. Maybe next time. Maybe next time. But we're gonna move this train on over to Mr. Nick, and Mr. Nick is gonna talk about his coalition.
So I'll say this, and let me start with my. So I'm actually I'm the chair of the Veterans Caucus here in Texas, the Democratic Veterans Caucus. So I'm going to talk a little bit about veterans first, if you don't mind. Um, Texas has more veterans than any other state in the United States. Texas has more military bases than any other state in the United States. We need to start focusing on getting veterans to run. And I'm going to shoot some numbers at you, some crazy numbers. Right now, in the current Congress of the United States, there's 98 with J.D. Vance, and there's a district person. There's 100 people in Congress that are veterans, right? 100. Of those 100, 71, 72, excuse me, are Republicans. 26 are Democrats.
Wow.
They target veterans, the Republican side. 8 of them are special operators. Why? Because image is everything. People put military special operators in a different category. They watch Navy SEAL, they watch all these shows, and they think these guys are the baddest of the baddest of the baddest. So they put them up there. And this is who they want, they think is going to represent them. It's this image of manhood, right? And this image of Americana that they believe is where it is. Now, on the Democratic side, there are a lot of Democrats that are veterans. We have to convince them to run. We have to convince them that they're viable. We have to show the American people that these people can run and win, and they're going to care about them too. That number is so wide and disparaging. It's crazy that it's so wide. But it's a targeted, they do a targeted to get those people. It's not by accident, it's by purpose. So when I was in DC, I ran for a position with the Veterans and Military Family Council. I am now the vice chair of recruitment. What does that mean? My job, my new position is to grow the group, right? Grow the group in places where they are. We have 38 district directors, right? So 38, so there's 57 states and territories, right? So 38 only. So I got some work to do because I got to get up to Idaho and Montana because we don't have anybody up there, which is crazy, Dale, because I know Dale's a smart guy. We had a Democratic senator from Montana, but yet we don't have a military director in the state of Montana. Make it make sense. These are the things that we have to do. The same old isn't working anymore. We're not going to win people's hearts and minds anymore because guess what? The moral compass is gone. People care about survival now. People are in survival mode. You know who understands survival? Veterans. You know who could speak to the common people? Veterans. You know who understands democracy? Veterans. You know who understands selfless service? Veterans. All those things. So if you're a veteran and you want to run, call us. Call us. We're here for you. If you're a veteran's family member, call us. Because our new two co-chairs are awesome. One is out of Florida. Her last name is Vinman. Everybody know her name. Her husband was the one that her brother, her brother-in-law, and her husband stood up to Trump. And then the other co-chair is a gentleman named Chef Basil from California. He's the California director who raises money and helps people all over the country, veterans run and helps other states. Veterans, we understand these things. Now I'll switch to Black issues. 13%. We can't do it alone. We might believe we can, we can't. 13%. We need allies. We need friends. 13%. But we also need to do our part, and we need to show up with that 13%. And we need to show up strong. And we need to show up in those areas where they expect us not to show up. Because here's what I'm going to say. In the last election, everyone focused on Hispanics, and we thought, oh, they're going to be ICE and Black. A lot of Black Americans said, oh, it's not my problem. I'm an American citizen. They can't do nothing to me. ICE, whatever. ICE away. ICE put ice in my coffee. Well, ICE was the distraction because guess what else they went after? Medicare, Medicaid, and SNAP.
Yep.
Black women still have the highest infant mortality rate in the world. What did we do to fix that? Right? We're still 13% of the population in the United States. Why? Go vote. Exercise your right. You have the power. Make things matter. I love Cardi B and Doja and all these people and Simply Red, all these rappers. You follow everything they do, but you don't know who your representative is. Stephanie, you said something early about being involved with your child. When's the last time you showed up to your child's school? Help read a book to a child. We talk about literacy rates. That's how they took over the Department of Education. That's how they defunded all these schools because they said, oh, the kids aren't learning in public education. Let's make vouchers. Well, when I grew up, it took a community. Community supported the schools. They showed up. I remember my mom going up to the school to help do things, pack lunches, read books, all these things. It took a community. Where did that go? And I know we're a global economy now and people don't have time because they have to work and two incomes. And I get that. Trust me, I do. I do. But if you have 1 minute of a day to do something to change your life, you should. That's where we're lacking. So I'm going to talk to Black people. If you don't think that you're about to be affected, you're a fool. If you're a veteran and you don't think that the VA getting all those cuts, my wife was telling me the other day, they cut 200 people from the Dallas VA. 200 positions. You think that's going to make it easier for a veteran to go get health care? No, it's going to be harder. So your vote matters. Vote for somebody that's going to do good for you. Don't vote against your own self-interest. That's crazy. It baffles me when teachers voted and knew that vouchers were going to happen and they were going to maybe lose their job. I didn't understand that concept. I still don't understand that concept. How do you vote against yourself? We can do it. We can all do it. But it's going to take some drastic changes. And we need good people, not good politicians. And I tell people this all the time. I can deal with a bad politician, but I can't deal with a bad person. I can change a bad politician. because you just give them an incentive and they'll change. Bad people, their minds are set. You ain't gonna change bad people. Bad people have bad intentions. Bad politicians are selfish. They just want to keep their job. And then we're talking about term limits. People have been throwing at, oh, term limits. What do you feel about term limits? It's a tough one. Because if you put term limits in, that means people don't really truly get to pick their representative. They only pick them for a time. It's a tough discussion. I don't believe in age limits. I don't believe in that. I'll tell you that. I can tell you no, I don't believe. Just because you get old doesn't mean you're not wise, and that doesn't mean you can't do your job. Because there's a term called a young fool. What are we going to do? We can change. And I love that you're doing this platform, Stephanie and Dale, because we need to do this. And I hope it gets amplified. And I hope, hey, all you people that are watching, I don't know how many are watching, but watching, like her so she can get on YouTube and we can amplify this voice, because she's right. The fourth state, the media, they tell you what they want because they get paid. I'm a big proponent that we need a third major group, party, political party. We need a third. I say that all the time because it'll keep everyone honest. But the problem is the media won't allow a third party to advertise.
Absolutely. I agree with all of that. That was a really good speech there, Nick.
Thank
I
you.
will
Wait,
say
wait.
I like that one line.
I was slow, Nick.
If I do like that one line where you say, "If you don't believe that this won't affect you, then you're a fool." I want to plagiarize off from James Tallarico. I've heard him say this a couple of times in his speeches, where he says, "I know that you may not care about politics, but trust me, politics cares about you. It will affect your life. And if you're not voting, then you're not taking charge on how politics is going to shape your life." I really thought that was a very powerful thing there. And
Mhm.
when it comes to term limits, I will say I didn't know this until semi recently, but Texas state level actually has an interesting way of trying to handle that. They don't have term limits per se, but from what I understand, and I need to fact check this because someone was telling me this, but state house individuals and state senators, they while they make less than minimum wage, for every term that they serve, their pension increases,
Mhm.
but their pension increases to a certain maximum cap. And so, for example, Senator Drew Springer, he retired. That's why SD30 was such a contentious race. And some people were thinking, like, well, wait a minute, like, why is he retiring? And they said, like, oh, it's because he just maxed out his pension, right? Why are you going to work a job that makes you less than minimum wage when you have this big pension now built up after all this time? You might as well take the pension and go. So it's one interesting thing I saw at the state level. Now, granted, if you're backed by billionaires, that probably doesn't matter, right? But I don't know, just throwing that one out there, just to ever add to any future discussion about length of terms and things like that.
No more incentive, huh? I guess, huh?
Yeah.
I'm laughing because when I hit 20 years in the military, I woke up and somebody told me that they're like, you're working for half the pay, right? And I was like, what are you talking about? They're like, half of this is yours when you quit. And I was like, you know what? Why am I still here? Like, I'm gonna work for half a pay because if I go home and quit, I'm get half of this money is mine already. I don't know.
Maybe that's the reason why my husband retired. He retired and he's happy go lucky. He's
Yeah.
happy go lucky. But you're absolutely right. I wanted that too because I'm like, here in Texas, the House and the Senate only gets paid a little bit over $7,000 a year, but they're away from home for more than that. So we're gonna break it down even more. So they're only making 600, a little bit over $600 a month. Now, just think about that. Do they get incentives for going up and down the road? If they're driving, do they get incentives for that? Do they get clothing allowance? They're going through a lot. But at the end of the day, they got this pension. I'm sorry. Some of us might not even make it to see our pension, but
Pension, what's that? I don't even know what that word is. It's a millennial.
that's gone like 15, 20 years ago. They'll quit bringing up my age. Well, Frederick, Nick, I just love having you on tonight. You
Thank
have opened up our eyes to a whole lot of things, and I definitely want to make sure that we bring you back again anytime you have an open invite to come on back here and let us know what's going on with the coalition. And I'm definitely with you when it comes to the veterans because, of course, I have a spouse that's a veteran, and my daughter is active duty,
you.
and I want them to get all the help they can, especially my husband. I want to make sure he gets all the help that he possibly can get, because he served just like how you served. If y'all have not been around anybody that served in the military, and this is for all my veterans, I love my veterans. When they went overseas in Desert Storm, in Iraqi freedom, some of them came back okay, and some of them didn't come back okay. Some of them came back with all kind of diseases. Some of them had coming back with cancer and ear issues and PTSD that a lot of people don't talk about. Our veterans have suffered a lot, and they are entitled. Let me rephrase that. They are entitled to have the medical services that we're supposed to grant them. We don't want another Vietnam War thing where our veterans come home and they're being spit on and all kind of stuff, discriminated against, being called names. We have to protect our veterans. They go through a lot. And if you don't know what a veteran go through, go talk to one and they'll tell you, especially those who had to serve overseas. Go talk to them, especially during wartime. So, while some people think, oh, it's just cool, well, let's just go send our soldiers over there to war. Do you know the mental thing that it takes for them to go get their mindset to go fight, and they know that they might have to go and take somebody's life? And then when they come back home, they have to readjust. Some of them can't readjust real quick. Some of them are over precaution about what's going on. So what we take for granted, they don't. While we sitting up here going to Walmart, Target, and all these other different places and thinking that everything all happy go lower, they're sitting up there scoping the whole place trying to see what exit door that we're supposed to go out of just in case something happens. That's why it's important for us to make sure that our veterans are okay. Because as far as the mental part, they need that. And they deserve every freaking penny that is allowed to them to get. They deserve that. They deserve that. Every last one of these veterans. They serve to protect our butts while we're sitting at home eating our popcorn and bum bums and going to all these different parties and galas and stuff like that. They're sitting up here protecting the country from people who want to come over here and do harm to us. So if I was you that's non-veteran, I would be talking to my House members, my senators, my Congress, and talking to that man that's sitting up at the White House that likes to go and get us in all kind of crap. I would be talking to them, sending them letters. Because at the end of the day, those are our soldiers that you're putting on the line. Because I guarantee you, those billionaires, their kids are not sacrificing their lives to go and serve. It's very rare for them to go and put boots on. So that's my little piece. Y'all, we got to protect our veterans and we got to make sure that we do the right thing. Vote for folks that's going to have your best interests at heart. So that's all I have to say. Thank you, Fredrick. I just love calling you Nick. Thank you for coming on here. You
Anything for you. You called and I said yes, you know. And like I said, I got in midnight, got up at 5, went to work, and I was like, yeah, I got to do this. My girl called me, and I didn't know Dale was a part of this, but Dale, I've known Dale since he started thinking about running, and he's come, and I've loved and watched him grow in this political thing, and I'm impressed with him and all the great things he's done. And anytime you guys call, I will serve you.
Thank you. And Dale's just my heart. I just love me some Dale. If y'all want a candidate that actually cares about the people, that's your guy right there. So eventually he's going to announce what he's going to be doing in the future. But y'all, if you want a candidate that actually cares about the community, that's out there, boots on the ground, because all of us don't all wear boots, but Dale wears his boots and he's out there trying to serve the people. So please remember him when he gets ready to announce whatever he's planning on doing in the future. So once again, thank y'all for coming on to Let's Talk About It, Steph. You know we always got something coming up, and we always going to talk about whatever's going on. So meet us next Wednesday at 7 p.m. You never know who's going to pop on the show. Y'all have a good night and see you next time.